On the last day of December, when the city was shimmering with lights and every window seemed to glow with the warmth of approaching celebration, a young courier named Daniel rushed through the cold evening streets, weaving between crowds burdened with holiday bags and boxes. He had been working since early morning, and by the time the winter sky began turning dark blue, he had already delivered more than 30 packages. Yet the notifications on his phone kept coming, one after another, reminding him that the world did not care that today was New Year's Eve, or that he too dreamed of being home, sitting beside a small Christmas tree he had not even had time to put up. The bitterness inside him was growing with each new address. He felt as if the whole city celebrated while he was stuck in a loop of endless doorbells, heavy parcels, and forced polite smiles. The cold wine stung his face, and every breath came out as steam that immediately dissolved into the air, leaving no trace, just like the small efforts he made each day, unnoticed and unappreciated. He began to think that life was unfair, that he was simply a small cog in a machine that would keep turning without him. His friends were already sending messages in the group chat, showing photos of decorated tables, mugs of hot chocolate, someone lighting fireworks early. Daniel turned off the notifications. He couldn't bear it. With each step he felt more tired, more alone, more certain that his life was slipping past him without meaning. His next delivery was far from the city center, in a quiet, nearly empty neighborhood where most of the windows were dark. Few people lived there, mostly elderly residents who preferred to celebrate the new year quietly, without noise or bright parties. As he walked along the narrow snow-covered path, he wondered who would order anything at this hour from this forgotten corner of the city. He found the right house, a small one-story building with a crooked mailbox, and a faint string of old Christmas lights flickering in the window. For a moment he thought no one was home. He knocked anyway. The door opened slowly, and an elderly woman with soft white hair, wrapped in a thick sweater, greeted him with a warm but tired smile. "Oh, thank you for coming," she said gently. "I thought maybe the order wouldn't arrive tonight. It's such a busy day for you all." Daniel, cold and exhausted, only nodded. He wanted to hand her the package quickly and leave, but she continued speaking. "Would you mind bringing it inside? It's a bit heavy for me." He stepped in reluctantly. The house smelled of pine needles and freshly baked cookies. A small artificial Christmas tree stood in the corner, decorated with old handmade ornaments that clearly carried memories. The living room was modest but warm, filled with soft yellow light from a vintage lamp. The woman asked him to set the box on the table, and as he did, Daniel noticed only one place setting on the dining table. Just one plate, one glass, one chair brought closer to the table than the others. Suddenly the house felt too quiet, as if it had once been filled with laughter but had slowly forgotten the sound. "You must be in a hurry," the woman said, noticing his restless glance at the door. "But would you mind staying just 1 minute? I haven't spoken to anyone today." Daniel felt torn. Every part of him wanted to leave, finish his deliveries, and finally rest. But something in her voice, a mixture of hope and loneliness, made him pause. She motioned for him to sit. He sat on the edge of the chair, ready to stand at any moment. "This is my first New Year alone," she said softly, clasping her hands. "My husband passed away in spring. We spent 47 New Year's Eves together. And tonight, well, I tried to make it feel festive anyway." She smiled as if apologizing for her sadness, and Daniel felt the bitterness inside him loosen, just slightly. She explained that the package he delivered contained a small framed photo she had ordered, a picture of her and her husband from their first New Year together. She had planned to put it near the tree, as if it would make his presence feel a little closer. Daniel felt something shift inside him. He looked around at the simple decorations, the quiet room, the single place set at the table, and suddenly all his complaints seemed shallow. Here was a woman who had lost so much, yet she still found reasons to celebrate, to decorate, to bake cookies, to keep warmth alive in a house that now held only memories. He thought about his own life, how often he focused only on what he lacked, on what annoyed him, on what others had that he didn't. And yet he had youth, health, friends, opportunities, and a future waiting to be shaped. He had been blind to it. The woman offered him a cookie, and he accepted it politely. It was warm, soft, and tasted like something familiar, something comforting, as if it carried a piece of the holidays he had forgotten to feel. "You know," she said quietly, "we think happiness is something big, some grand event or miracle. But it's not. Happiness is small. It's in simple things. A warm house, a kind word, a shared moment, even a knock on the door when you're not expecting anyone. Life becomes bright not because everything is perfect, but because we choose to notice the little lights." Daniel felt her words settle deep inside him. He stayed a few more minutes, listening to her stories, about her husband, about the silly traditions they had, about how they once burned a pot of soup so badly the smell stayed for 3 days. She laughed at her own memories, and Daniel couldn't help but smile too. When he finally stood to leave, she thanked him again, but this time it felt different. "Thank you for giving me company on a very quiet night," she said. "You made it feel like a holiday again." As he stepped outside, the snow was falling softly, covering the street like a clean white blanket. For the first time that day, Daniel looked around and truly saw the beauty of the city, the glowing windows, the shimmering lights, the distant sound of people laughing and celebrating. He felt the cold air fill his lungs, but instead of irritation, it felt refreshing. He realized that happiness wasn't waiting for him somewhere far away, or in some ideal future moment. It was already here, in the simple, quiet things he always overlooked. A warm cookie, a sincere conversation, a stranger's gratitude. He understood now that his life wasn't empty or meaningless. It simply needed attention, the kind of attention the old woman gave to her tiny tree, her memories, and her small celebration of life. When he returned to his route, everything felt different. Each delivery was no longer just a duty. It became an opportunity to bring a piece of happiness to someone else. And for the first time that night, Daniel didn't feel alone. He felt connected to the city, to its people, to the simple lights glowing around him. He promised himself that when the clock struck midnight, he would not think about what he lacked but about what he had. And he would call the people he cared about and tell them so. That night, as fireworks burst across the sky and the new year began, Daniel stood for a moment on a quiet street and whispered a small thank you for the unexpected encounter, for the lesson wrapped in kindness, and for the simple truth he had finally learned. Happiness is not something you chase, it's something you recognize.